Good afternoon and welcome to today's press conference with Swedish Minister for Foreign Affairs Tobias Billström and Canadian Minister for Foreign Affairs Ms Joly. The press conference will be available on the Swedish government's website, government.se.
So, very welcome to this press conference where it is an honor for me to welcome my Canadian friend and colleague, Minister for Foreign Affairs Ms Joly, to Stockholm today. And as Sweden made the decision to join NATO, Canada was the first country to ratify our application, and Canada's unwavering support, and not least to mention your personal engagement, Mélanie, to Sweden during a very defining moment in Swedish history, speaks volumes of our close relations and like-mindedness, and this will not be forgotten, I promise you. I am therefore deeply grateful to have the honor of welcoming you in Stockholm for the first time as allies. And Canada is one of Sweden's closest, most like-minded and most trusted partners. We share a strong determination to stand up for freedom, democratic values and human rights. And in these turbulent times, these things matter more than ever, and they form part of our transatlantic values. Together we face the challenges of security environment that has become less predictable. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine makes a turning point for Swedish, European and global security. Sweden's and Finland's NATO membership, however, makes the situation in our part of Europe more predictable. And I'm happy to say the transatlantic link is stronger than ever. Today, Sweden, Canada and other Arctic allies will ensure a strong deterrence and defense in the High North. Sweden and Canada are both invested in NATO's long-term support for Ukraine and are united in our strong and comprehensive support to Ukraine ever since its independence in 1991. Sweden looks forward to building on our excellent security and defense cooperation with Canada, both bilaterally and now also as full military allies. One concrete measure will be the planned Swedish contribution to NATO's full advanced presence, the forward land forces in Latvia, led by Canada. A government decision was recently taken to mandate the Swedish armed forces to the task of planning and preparing for a reduced-sized battalion, size of 600 soldiers, expected to start early in 2025. Tomorrow, Minister Joly and I will continue to Prague for the informal NATO Foreign Ministers meeting, where we will discuss the final preparations ahead of the NATO summit in Washington in July. And here we will both actively push for a strengthened role for NATO in the coordination of long-term support and training to Ukraine as we prepare for the summit in July. So once again, a warm welcome to Stockholm, Mélanie. I highly value our strategic partnership and what lies ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Tobias. It's a pleasure for me to be here. It's my second time as Foreign Minister in Sweden. Last time was in December 2021 during the OSCE meeting. And of course, we know that the world has changed since then. Canada and Sweden have a long-standing friendship founded on mutual respect, common values, people-to-people ties, including indigenous ties, and cooperation and shared priorities. And I'm pleased that Canada and Sweden long-standing partnership is taking on even greater significance now as allies. And we've always supported Sweden's close relationship with NATO, but we wanted to do more, and that's why we were the first country to ratify Sweden's accession to the alliance. We know that Sweden's NATO membership makes NATO even stronger and more secure, and we welcome the perspective and expertise that you're bringing to the alliance. Prior to Sweden's accession to NATO, our military worked together in Ukraine on Operation Unifier to train many of the Ukrainian soldiers. And of course, we know that, as mentioned by the minister, by you, Tobias, that you will be participating in the multinational battalion that brigade actually, that we will be leading in Latvia. So thank you for that. Canada has 2,000 soldiers that are now based out of Latvia, and we look forward to welcoming your 600 armed forces there. As we look forward to the Washington Summit, we look forward to your participation for the first time at Leaders Summit, at the leaders level as a NATO member. And we know that we're now facing a diverse set of challenges that makes NATO more relevant than ever. Russia has brought back war to Europe, and we continue to face other serious threats and challenges, including terrorism, cyber threats, and the impact of climate change on security. And we need to make sure that at the summit, we have clear and strong deliverables for Ukraine. Now, if I talk about Ukraine very briefly, of course, we're concerned about Ukraine's latest assessment of the war and current trend lines, and we are determined to make sure that Ukraine wins this war. So that's why signing a long-term bilateral security arrangement which sends a clear message to Moscow was important, and we're very happy that you're working on this as well. We've also launched an initiative that is really dear to my heart, which is to bring back Ukrainian children that have been abducted by Russia. And we're working with Ukraine, with Qatar on this issue. And we wanted to thank Sweden for joining this initiative. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure also that we are there in the long run for Ukraine, as it will be rebuilding its capacity eventually after the war. And I would like to recognize Sweden's crucial role under the EU Swedish presidency, and I know you worked a lot on that, when Sweden led the creation of an EU working group to investigate leverage frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. We continue to apply maximum pressure on the Russian regime with coordinated sanctions to send a clear message. Canada and Sweden will not be a safe harbor for those who have supported or enabled this war, and will also cooperate against those who are trying to circumvent these sanctions. Now, on the question of the Arctic, you and I spoke at lunch about this. We were a strong supporter of Sweden's accession to NATO and first to ratify, because we thought it was not only a net benefit to the alliance, but also to us as an Arctic nation. Why? Because Canada and Sweden both share the fact that we're in the same neighborhood as Russia, and to that extent, we need to address that threat. For a long time, Arctic nations, particularly through the Arctic Council, have developed a high north, low tension approach. And the Arctic agenda and also our security agenda were different. Now we need to make sure that these two agendas are aligned. And we need to make sure also that we put Arctic engagement together at the core of our foreign policy. We back in Canada have a new defense policy which puts Arctic engagement at the core of our investments. And when it comes to our Arctic engagement on security issues, we want to make sure that Arctic nations such as Sweden and Canada ourselves are in charge of that conversation and what happens in the Arctic. So we'll continue this work, having also Indigenous people's perspective at the core of what we do, and looking forward to working with Sweden. Finally, last point, we've talked about the Middle East together and the recent development regarding Rafah. What happened in Rafah is absolutely horrific. We are against this military operation, and we are calling for an immediate ceasefire. Donc voilà, nous avons parlé de l'OTAN, de l'Ukraine, de Washington, du sommet de Washington, de l'Arctique et également du Moyen-Orient. Ça me fera plaisir de répondre à toutes questions en français sur ces différents sujets. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Very good. Then we open up for questions, if there are any.
Olivier Feignet for the French news agency AFP. Two questions. My first question is for both of you. Will Canada and Sweden allow Ukraine to use your military equipment to target Russia on its soil? And my second question is for Mr. Minister Billström. Do you have some news about the Swedish diplomat held in Iran, Johan Flodorus?
Very good. Thank you very much. And I will answer in Swedish. Jag vill gärna börja med att säga att Den här frågan har alltså inte ställts på sin spets eftersom de vapensystem som Sverige hittills har skänkt i huvudsak har haft en mer begränsad räckvidd. Med det sagt så har Sverige inte heller haft anledningen att ställa några villkor för hur den materiel som vi har skänkt hittills får lov att användas. Sverige har således inte uttalat några begränsningar eller förbehåll om hur Ukraina får använda svensk materiel som har blivit donerad till Ukraina, annat än att de ska användas i enlighet med den internationella humanitära rätten. Och enligt folkrätten så är Ukrainas bekämpande av militära mål på Rysslands territorium legitimt. Givetvis under beaktande av den internationella humanitära rättens regler. Att bistå Ukraina med militärt materiellt stöd strider inte mot folkrätten och innebär inte heller att den givande staten anses vara en del av den väpnade konflikten. Vad gäller Johan Flodérus som sitter godtyckligt frihetsberövad av de iranska myndigheterna så arbetar den svenska regeringen oförtrutet på att få honom frisläppt så att han så fort som möjligt kan återförenas med sin familj. Och givet de ogrundade anklagelser som har presenterats i hans fall så är det helt rimligt att detta sker så fort som möjligt naturligtvis. Tack. Mélanie, please.
Yes. Le voulez-vous en français or in English? Okay. Well, when it comes to your first question, we believe that this is an issue that is important. The minister and I have had the chance to talk about it. We're heading to NATO afterwards, and we'll definitely be bringing this subject at the core of our conversations. We believe that we need to be forward-leaning on this question. Why? Because Russia has no red line. And so that is why we need to make sure that when it comes Ukraine's defense, that we're there to help them and that we show that notwithstanding what is happening, that we're by their side. And there's, in Canada, no condition on end-user shipment of arms to Ukraine, and that is why we will continue to work with Ukrainian armed forces.
Very good. Any more questions? If that is not the case, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Tack.
Thank you.